Welcome to another base clinic. Today we're going to be talking about how to build a ballistic ship for base defense using the options available currently in the game in November 2016. So we know Kickstarter keeps releasing more things, so hopefully the principles and ideas here are transferable to whatever they release next. But we gotta keep up with. So mostly I'll be covering what specials, what cannons, what ships to use, what armors and whatnot. My usual disclaimer here, there are many options. I'm gonna show some things I use in my base and works in the setup, considering all the parts of ships, turrets. So you can't just copy what I show here and expect it to work. You have to fine tune for your setup. And just keep adjusting, based on whatever's getting in your base, but I find ballistic hulls to be highly effective countering most Conquerors. Hey there, parts. Today we'll see how to build a Valiant, but not the vanilla scattergun Valiant. The focus will be on how to build a ballistic defender for your base. It's very important to have a ballistic hull, as many of the Conquerors have absolutely no defense, no deflection against cannons. So I really think most players, if not everyone, should plan on having a ballistic defender in their base. And the Valiant actually fits the part really well, as it has 50% ballistic range, the same bonus as you get in the Gamma Behemoth. Now, it also has a very well-rounded defense against all Conquerors, all different sorts of deflections, and it starts at 0 evade, so it really works well as a ballistic hull. Now, if you don't have a Valiant, the other two options, and here's the important part, look at the max weight of 9,500 tons. So whatever I design here, if you don't have a Valiant, you can just immediately transfer all this design to a Punisher. It has the same 5 specials, it has the same maximum weight. The only thing here is you're gonna have 40% ballistic range bonus, but on the plus side you get a 60% ballistic reload, right? And plus 100% ballistic damage. So it actually does more damage than the Valiant, but it's gonna last a lot less. So it's a subpar option here that you can use as a defender. And the reason I say that this is the second best option probably is because it has decent assault deflection against incoming ships, and you can work the resistances quite high. The other option, if you have it, is to actually use a Gamma Behemoth. That's what I have today. It has even better assault deflection, it has decent resistances, and you can bring them up. And 100% reload and 50% ballistic range as well, plus damage. So these are the 3 best options. I really like the Gamma Behemoth I have in my base. We'll look at some options across these 3 and compare which one does more damage, which specials to use and whatnot. The Gamma, you can actually fit more weaponry, more specials. It has a higher max weight, and it also happens to be the best anti-mortar ship in the entire game, with all the bonuses built in the hull. So you don't need any specials for countermeasures, it's all here. Okay. So back to the Valiant, the one thing is, although it doesn't have on the base statistics up there, when it has a field that, unless it's disabled by a pinch or a cold snap, which is not going to happen in your base defense, it actually gives you 20% extra ballistic damage and 50% extra ballistic reload. So when you add that up, it becomes a lot more closer to the Gamma Behemoth or the Punisher as a defender. So I'm going to say, I think, in terms of damage output, the Gamma Behemoth is still the best. The Valiant would be a second one, and the Punisher number 3, especially because of the shorter range. You get only 90% bonus. Here's a very simple option for the Valiant, mostly with researchable technology, such as Hardened Barrel 3 for range, Autoloader 3 for 110% more ballistic reload, Guidance Scrambler 3, so that gives you 50% evade bonus if you have it retrofitted at R15. and resistance to pinch rockets. And finally, countermeasure loaders for even more reload. And if you plan on using any sort of hails or flanks here, this is a good special to use. You'll notice I'm not using any resistance specials like MC or compound armor or heavy plates, because this hull is handicapped 100%. So you cannot put anything here to increase its resistances. And siege battery doesn't make sense, as this will be shooting only at ships in your base defense. It's a mix of cannons from tier 2 and tier 3 in FM, like the crossbow 3, crossbow 2. The only one some people may not have, because it's a bit old, is the disruptor cannon. And this one's here to slow down attackers, so the other cannons have better chances of hitting them. Okay, you could achieve the same result with a lockdown rocket, but a much shorter range than this cannon. As for armor, you could go all evade, or you could use some shockwave plates. So for instance, you could go easy on the armor to keep a low repair time, or you could add some radioactive plates here to make you more resistant against launcher fleets attacking your base. So that's up to you, just gotta keep an eye on the weight. So I gotta go light here, or choose to do less damage by using lighter weapons overall. So here, that fits. The good thing about this build is if you want to, it's entirely transferable to a Punisher, for instance. If that's the best you have, you can have mostly the same cannons, a little bit of a different mix here. You lose some weapons or some armor plates, and now because it's a Punisher, you can actually work on improving resistances. It's not handicapped. So in this case, instead of the loader, I would certainly go for a heavy plate, so that gives you more defense against incoming missiles, mortars, and the likes. Okay, so here's a good choice. If you have as well, you could open up another special slot just by using agility system. So get rid of the shielded, and from the blueprints here, if you have agility system 4, even better, which is a limited blueprint, I'm out of it. If not, you can use agility 3 and free up yet another slot, either for reload or more evade. I mean, that's entirely up to you. I'm going to put the reload module back, which also allows me to put some hails and whatnot. Okay, here, because I have free weight, we could go back to adding some crossbows. Okay, now people ask me why do I choose the crossbow. It's just because it has the highest damage in a single shot against ships, which is important. It's 2,129 ship damage, which is also boosted by the extra ballistic damage of the Punisher, 100%, so that pretty much doubles. It's 4,000, which can overcome a lot of different deflections. If you choose the Arbalest, it's heavier. It's also tier 4 weapon in Forsaken mission. A lot heavier than the crossbow, but it has a little bit more range. You get 100 range with this, you get 98 with the crossbow. So that's the main advantage of the Arbalest. But in terms of single shot damage against ships, the Arbalest loses. You get 3,000 with the Punisher bonus, you get 4,000 if you use the crossbow. So let's go back to the Valiant, which still, I think, is one of the best options here. But then again, now this is useless, so we gotta get rid of this. Let's work on improving those specials here. If you skull your ship, you don't need to reload as much as you want to do as much damage as you can. So let's try and concentrate a few things. I'm gonna first of all remove this guy. It's useless, cannot be used with the Valiant. If you have the nuclear Accelerator, it's a better special because it gives the same range bonus of 50%, but it gives you a 40% accuracy bonus, better against high evade attackers. And instead of the autoloader, which is has a very small impact when your ship has top rank, you can go and find if you have the piercing shells. This one gives you 35 ballistic damage and pierce decay reduction for the crossbows and the arbalests. It's a good special to have. If you want to pile up even more special, the Valiant generates, in its special abilities here, you'll see it generates a field, 45 range. It self-triggers, so this guy with resonance trigger yes means we can come in here and use either the resonance capacitor for additional 36% damage or the resonance battery for 20% damage bonus. So I'm gonna pick the capacitor, assuming it's gonna be just one field activating. That's a better choice. Okay, so yeah, we have 5 good specials. We have now a lot of way to play with because the autoloader makes the whole ship very, very heavy. So I can either go heavier on the armor and get more radioactive defense, or you can go heavier on evade armor and get more evade overall. The armor in itself doesn't make a big difference, you just gotta make sure it's worth the repair time. So right now it's at 4 hours and 37. You put that in the base slot, base defense slot, that's gonna go down to 2 hours and 20 minutes, give or take. Okay, if you wanna go heavier on weapons, I have an arbalest here, I can put a couple others, or just leave the crossbows, like I said. More damage per shot, so I prefer that over the arbalest. We can put a few more because we have room to spare. So that's a 2, let's move it to a crossbow 3. Okay, and we have 2 disruptors to slow them down. And now if you want this guy to spot for a missile ship or a mortar ship at the back, you might want to change one of these to a bypass chain gun, which has maximum range for a cannon 50, and also is going to deal a lot of minimum damage per shots, which is good against the Harlock Revenge, for instance, because always there's a minimum pass through. So this one with 30 salvos will just fire non-stop very fast. It can be an interesting option. It's also very heavy cannon, so use it wisely. I don't even think I can fit 2 of them in here without going overweight. So if I'm looking for minimum damage, probably the bypass chain gun 2 will get the same job done. So this could be it. This could be your ship. This special here gives you room for countermeasures if you want, or just gives you plain more reload. I mean, if there's anything else, we could take a look at it here. Let's see. Could look at something to buff special. If you want, you could take a look at the cryo battery to create some ice fields to slow down attackers. That's another option. You could fit that special here and not go overweight. Yeah, so that's a good one. What else? Yeah, I think that's it. You know, it's either the cryo battery or countermeasure reloader. And again, this whole build is pretty transferable to a Punisher or a Gamma Behemoth. Just then change some of these specials to resistance specials. I would keep the other 3, the nuclear accelerator, piercing shells, and agility system just as they are. Use level 4 here if you have. You know, this can just trash Vendetta's retributions and pretty much any other ship without ballistic deflection. The Spite is the best one to counter because it has a very high armor and very high ballistic deflection. Now a lot of people just want the Malice, which is a Conqueror hull, so primarily to attack bases, but if you're looking for a base defender, this is also a great choice. I mean, it's not as well rounded as the Valiant, it has less armor, it doesn't have deflection against all types of damages, so if somebody's coming in to attack you, let's say with mortars, it doesn't have the explosive deflection here. And it's not gonna get bloodthirsty in base defense, so whatever you see down here as a special ability won't apply when it's working in defense, so you won't get any of that. So anybody attacking you with ballistic or explosive can actually get rid of the Malice fairly quickly, right? But it's still, I mean, it has the 100% range bonus, it has a good reload bonus for ballistics, some extra damage as well that you can get 85%, so it's not shabby at all, and builds relatively fast, and it's going to repair fast than any other options. So, you know, if it's one just for base defense, you see I have the loader, agility system, piercing range, nuclear accelerators, and I chose the cryo battery here, as this one doesn't generate its own field, so it's not guaranteed it's gonna trigger a capacitor unless you have it sitting next to a hull that has a field triggering resonance. I wouldn't rely on this guy. If you do have the hull though, you could use capacitor here by all means. But again, a bunch of crossbows, one bypass chain gun for maximum range, and 2 disruptors to slow down attackers. It's pretty much not much difference here in terms of weapons chosen. But that's a fast alternative for people without any of the other previous hulls. Should perform better than a Punisher, for instance. To summarize what we saw, here you can see which ships have the most range, the most damage bonus. In that case, the Punisher beats them all, but it loses to all the other options in range. Reloads will vary highly depending on the special you use, but once you have 75% rank, and let's say in a Valiant 70% reload, it's very decent, right? You don't really need auto loaders in there. I'm using that on the Malice setup you see in here just for comparison. All of them get the same accuracy bonus, and that comes from the nuclear accelerator. If you use hardened barrels, then you don't have this. And finally, just to do a bit of an apples to apples, here's what you get with from a single crossbow tree, R15, just the ballistic portion of the cannon, because that cannon also has penetrative damage, and I'm not accounting for that here in the comparison. This is what you get from a single shot. So it's easily, with that you can easily overpower Vendettas, which have no deflection, no resistance. Retribution, same thing. Furies will be easily, even at full bloodthirst, will be easily overwhelmed by a few rounds of this. The Revenges, they cut close, and then you gotta consider most of them have 30-35% resistance, so the good thing is the Revenge have low total armor, so even at minimum damage it dies relatively fast. But the Gamma B can overwhelm the Revenge unless it has very high resistance. The Malice will take some damage if that ship is hitting them before they get full BT. After that, only the Punisher would be good enough to deal damage over the deflection. For all other ships, they will not be overpowered by cannons, but remember, cannons being high salvo weapons will still do minimum damage, and that's where sometimes using the bypass chain guns works really well, just because they keep firing 30 salvos each, and if you have a whole bunch of them, you wear the enemy down just by hitting minimum damage, so it's also a good idea. The numbers you see at star marks in here, they are because in some cases I'm using resonance capacitor or resonance battery, and you see the difference is I use the resonance battery in the hulls that don't have handicap because the battery gives them a resistance bonus. which works for the Punisher and works for the Gamma, but would be wasted on the Malice and the Valiant. So in this case, if you're going to use anything, use the Capacitor. It gives you more damage bonus for a single field, and the Valiant self-triggering. Of all four, is the only self-triggering hull. The Malice, if you wanted to fine-tune, it has the overload, so you gotta remember, even though it doesn't have, for instance, explosive deflection, so mortars will just vaporize it, it has the overload, which if this guy is spotting for a mortar ship on the back or a missile ship on the back, it's gonna cause a triple salvo every time it overloads, so you gotta use that strategically in your base defense. The Gamma is the only ship of the four with thermal, and it has a very decent thermal range, so it's a good sub-spotter. None of the other guys are good for that, so you gotta team up with Vanquishers, Hurlock Tide Seekers, or some other ship with thermal, while the Gamma is self-sufficient for that. So that's the summary. I mean, I would build the Valiant or the Gamma first, followed by the Malice, although the overload idea really excites me, and I haven't tried that yet. And the Punisher being a poor man's option. And I would say the Punisher before the Omega B or the regular Behemoth or any others, because it has deflection. And deflection in PvP is very important, right? Otherwise your ship just dies way too fast. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and good luck, captains.